You're watching Man Coverage with Nate Schmidt and James Bonneville on National Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone. This is Man Coverage. This is Knoxville Nate, James Bonneville. We are coming at you live talking college football on March 9th, 2025. I cannot believe it is March 9th of 2025. I say that every show, like I can't believe what the date is, but it just goes by fast when you're old. But it's good to see everybody. We appreciate everybody coming on and joining us. We are obviously brought to you by National Streaming Sports. We are sponsored by SeatGeek.com and BetUs.com. SeatGeek, the place for tickets, and BetUs.com, your America's trusted sports book. It's been a while. James, how are you doing, buddy?
Oh, it's I'm tired, man, but we're plugging away here. We're plugging away. I mean, heck, we're already into spring football, and it just seems like we ended the season like the other day. So,
yes, I listened to Ryan Day's press conference when he got back from the Buckeye Cruise from Cancer the other day, and he was kind of like, I got to be honest. He's like, this is the craziest spring that I've ever been a part of. He's like, we just got done with the season. He's like, we're setting up spring ball.
Yeah.
And somebody asked him, what was the biggest thing to look forward to in spring practice? And he's like, well, replacing 8 starters on defense, not to mention your quarterback and your wide receivers and both running backs. I mean, they got a lot of work to do, and a lot of teams do around the country. So it's going to be interesting. This year they're getting a lot of teams are doing away with the traditional spring game. What do you think about that, James? What do you feel? I mean, was the spring game like, who cares anyway? Are you pissed that they're not playing like traditional games anymore? What do you feel about that?
I always was excited about this, the spring game in the past because it was like football. But now it's kind of like, I look at it and I'm like, you get to see what the backups are, because if you're a starter, if you're smart, you're not playing. God forbid you get freaking hurt in that game, because there's been plenty of players in the past who have. I honestly, from the team's perspective, get that extra practice in and get them ready for the season. Get them that rest, summer workouts before they get in the fall practice. So I'm actually cool with it. I mean, you look at what Matt Rule's saying, especially with the transfer portal. All you're doing is providing research for other teams to potentially go after your players. So honestly, I think it's not a bad idea. Plus, it protects coaches in a lot of ways from people wanting to jump out after spring. So
yeah, no, I get it. I mean, if you are a player who's fighting for playing time, and then you have a traditional spring game and you don't get a ton of action, do you get mad and bounce? These are all things these guys have to think about nowadays.
Yeah.
And it's just the way that it is, man. I mean, you have to change. I always say the best thing about Coach Mike Krzyzewski was throughout his tenure, he always was able to adapt. When things changed, they started doing the one and dones, and he was like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to stick with my traditional Christian Laettner, Bobby Hurley. Well, after a while, everybody he was playing and losing to had a one and done. So then he started getting them, and they won a title, with the one and doners with Justin Winslow and that crew. And, he was able to adapt, and that's what you have to do now. You have to adapt. And if you think not having a televised spring game is going to save some of your players, well, by God, do it to it. Sticking on that front, I was telling you off air, it sounded like Eddie George is potentially going to be hired as the Bowling Green head coach. I know he had a final interview, I believe, yesterday. There's a lot of buzz that he may be getting that job. James, what do you think about the fit of Eddie George in Bowling Green, playing for the Falcons or coaching for the Falcons? I bet he probably could still play with the way he's in shape.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, honestly, I think it's a great fit. I mean, that he's going to be able to go into homes throughout Ohio, Indiana, throughout the Midwest, and still have that cachet he did when he was a player. I think he could sell well. You look what he did at Tennessee State; it was impressive to say the least. Yeah, I think it's a great move for Bowling Green, moving ahead. I mean, you look at Bowling Green before. I mean, they really changed the style of their offense quite a bit from what they were in the past. They used to be such a pass-happy team, and now that coach has moved on to the pros to be an assistant, and I'm interested in seeing what Eddie can do in the MAC, because the MAC really is struggling with an identity right now. It's not like what it once was like 5-10 years ago, where a MAC team was potentially a top 15 team that could really knock on the door and take out one of the big boys. It's a different MAC these days.
Yeah, it's tougher to get the big name players that squeak through the cracks. Like the Ben Roethlisbergers, the Chad Penningtons, the Randy Mosses, the guys that used to show up. Joshua Cribbs. Those guys are getting found these days, or they're playing for a year in the MAC and then transferring. So it's definitely harder to sustain success and build a team, in my opinion, in those smaller conferences. So it's kind of a shame in that regard. But I think Eddie could potentially, be a guy that could bring back some success to Bowling Green. Think about the coaches that they've had that have won there. Urban Meyer obviously comes to mind. Started his career there and had them winning at a big time clip. I think Eddie could potentially springboard himself, to a major college position by taking that next step up. Obviously, he started to have some success at Tennessee State this past year, made the playoffs for the first time since 1999. And now, I just think he needs, that middle kind of ground in between Tennessee State and, major Big Ten school. I think he needs like a middle ground for that. What do you think about the coaching? Do you think it would be helpful to him to maybe have a stop at Bowling Green before he tries to take, a major college job?
Yeah, I would. I mean, honestly, making that jump up. I'm complete agreement with you that there is that. You need that kind of jump to make that happen. Because right now it seems like the way things have changed you're seeing a lot of coaches who were in those mid majors who was a natural progression to go to a Power 5 job. You're starting to see more and more that it is going to be becoming assistant coaches, that you leave from the mid major to become an assistant coach, then become a head coach at the Power 5 level. But you look at him and what he's done. I think he really has the resume has been building up that he could potentially do that. I think obviously the Midwest would be a better fit for him, from Pennsylvania over to Nebraska and up for one of those type of jobs. Sticking in the Midwest, which is where his roots really truly are.
I agree. And, as you mentioned, their former coach, Scott Loeffler, he left Bowling Green to become the quarterback's coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. So kind of a step up for him, and potentially being able to better his career moving on there. So I didn't really blame him for doing that. Leaves an opening now where potentially Eddie can step in and make a move. He's been at Tennessee State for a while. It's not like this was his first year or something. He's been there for a while. So I think it's time to make a move and see if he can maybe make some noise in the MAC. So we'll see how that works out. But I think he'll probably take that job based on what I'm hearing. And I agree with you. I think it's a pretty good fit. Let's get into a little bit about the NFL scouting combine, or what used to be the scouting combine. Now it's the show up and do some meetings, because half the people don't even participate. I guess that's my question for you first. I get, as we were talking about off air, I understand why some of the Ohio State players or Notre Dame players don't want to participate, considering they just got done with the national championship game a couple of weeks ago, and these guys didn't have a chance to train for it. But it's like, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, these guys want to be drafted, number 1 overall, Caleb Williams last year. If I'm drafting somebody number 1 overall, don't you want them to be a competitor and want them to show up at an environment like this and show out, James?
I've always been a believer when it's not so cut and dried that you really got to participate. But the problem is the season's gone on so long. I mean, you look at a lot of those Ohio State players. I mean, they don't have the training ready to go because, let's be honest, this is a glorified presidential physical fitness test. I mean, we've seen plenty of guys who have done, i.e. Mike Mamula, who really showed out at the combine, who ended up being a dud at the next level. So I think they got to take it for what it is, not to put too much stock into it. In some years, it's recency bias played way too much of effect into it. And you could see guys who had really good years from a football perspective get downgraded because of what happened during the combine. So I granted, but we've seen lately too as well, like Trayvon Walker, vaulting to the first pick in the draft based off a strong combine. I mean, he was a good player, but it was going to be a first-round draft pick. But going into that draft, did you expect him to be the first pick in the draft at Jacksonville? I didn't.
No, I did not. And certainly people can help themselves. I don't think you can really harm yourself a whole lot by, maybe having a bad combine. I mean, I guess you could. I mean, it's a piece of the puzzle. It's a way to go in and show that you've been working out. I mean, if you can't put up 225 8 to 10 times, then you're never in the weight room.
Yeah.
And I get like these guys that haven't been able to train a ton, like I said, not getting the ability to focus on this because it's a different type of workout than what you're usually doing during the season. It's all about speed and, agility and that type of thing. But I still think it's a good tool, for these kids to show once again that they're competitors. I mean, if I was there, I would want to do the stuff. I mean, what's the point of even going if you're not going to participate and go out there and throw? I think there was only 4 or 5 quarterbacks that even threw.
Yeah.
If you can't go out there and throw a couple passes against air to some wide receivers, what the hell are you even doing thinking about going into the NFL? That's what absolutely blows my mind.
Yeah, no, I'm in complete agreement with you. I mean, honestly, in a lot of cases, it's checking off some boxes like the injuries, making sure you get checked out there, and then, getting the interviews in because they want to make sure that you're not. I mean, there's been some Demetrius Underwood issues in the past, making sure who you are because they're spending a lot of money on you in the process too as well. I mean, I truly am not a big fan of it, but let's be honest, the NFL has done a great job of basically scheduling it out so you're thinking about football 24/7, 365. And the combine kind of fits that role for where we're at now until we get into the draft.
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal, right? They want eyeballs on their product all year long. And they've done a good job of that, making the draft now like this event that goes on for multiple days and moves around, caravans around to different cities. And, they've got the skills challenge that used to be the Pro Bowl. They've got the combine, which they get eyeballs on for almost a week. They've got the Senior Bowl, the draft, then the, off season, the preseason will start right after that. So it's definitely.
What about free agency?
Agency. They got, they got a show every day about who's getting picked up and who's getting signed. And there's been a lot of activity with that, not to mention just the guys requesting trades. They make headlines about the guys that won out of wherever they're at. And that's the key, as we mentioned. This is all about now, and most important things is the physical. In Indianapolis, they've got the facilities there to have multiple doctors check these guys out. They got the CT scans, they got the MRIs where they can hit them up right away. And then, the meeting with the teams. I mean, that's really what it's come down to with a lot of these guys passing on, participating. that's what they're focused on. Most of these guys, if they do go there and they don't participate, they want to hit the interviews and get the physicals. But what guys, the guys that did participate, James, let's talk a little bit about who may have helped themselves. Who do we like, and then we'll talk about maybe who hurt themselves even trying to go out there. Why don't you kick it off with guys that really stuck out to you based on what they were able to do actually participating in this thing?
Oh, well, I think you'd be a fool not to start off with Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M.
Yeah, he was one of mine.
I mean, I mean, literally the height, the weight, the athleticism. We all knew he was going to be a first-round draft pick in this year. I mean, just based on athleticism alone, I mean, this could be this year's Trayvon Walker. I mean, I've heard people saying that this could be a guy that in the last 3 weeks could jump up even higher. I think he is going to jump up higher. I mean, 4.59 in the 40, ran a 1.58 split, 40-inch vert, 10.11 broad. I mean, the numbers, the athleticism, they pop off the charts. Grant, this should be nothing new to people because people knew he was athletic, but I think recency bias, he's going to go up higher in this draft and potentially higher, jump a few spots for other DNs or edge guys moving into this draft. I mean, what are your thoughts?
No, I think you hit it on the head, man. This guy is, versatile. I mean, that's one word that comes up for me with him. He's 6'5", 270 plus pounds. So you could play him on the inside. You could play him on the outside. Right there, he moves up just because of that. But then you look at those measurables with the 6'5", 270, and you add it with a 4.59, 40, a 40-inch vertical jump. How the hell do you jump 40 inches in the air when you weigh 270? And then he had a 10-foot, 11-inch broad jump. So, this is a dude that certainly helped himself. This is kind of, you mentioned Trayvon Walker. I kind of give you that because this is a guy, too, that, like Trayvon Walker, had a little bit of limited production. He only had, I believe, 6 sacks this past year, which isn't terrible. But, if you want to take a guy number 1, 2 overall, you're looking for double digits in sacks for sure. Who else you got?
Honestly, I look at the O-line as a whole. I mean, we saw 5 guys have sub-5 40s at this combine. I mean, Armand Embo from Missouri, I thought really showed out. Will Campbell, up until they checked his arm length, but if he doesn't play tackle, he's going to grade out at Steve Hutchinson at guard. Irisay out of Minnesota, Connerly, like if this is a year you're looking for a lineman, this is it. This is a very, very, very good offensive line draft, especially from athleticism. Probably the deepest part of the draft, in my perspective, is the offensive line. No matter if you need guard, center, or tackle, there's some real star power in this draft that you could get somebody probably in the 3rd round who's going to be 3rd or 4th round who could potentially start day 1 and by year 3 be an all-pro. I mean, it's kind of crazy how the combine really showed out on that.
Yeah, I like some of the O-linemen. Really, to me, the 2 deepest positions are probably D-line and running back.
The running back draft is, yeah, I agree. Compared to past years,
running back
really good.
Is really deep. I mean, there is a lot of guys you can get on day 2 or day 3 even that are going to come in and be starters. We're starting to see the running back position, be valued a little bit more. The devaluing of it hopefully has stopped with Saquon's season and Derrick Henry and even Joe Mixon out in Houston. They've gotten that running back position back up into the fold. And then, you look at the guys, that we just talked about, like Shamar Stewart. Another guy that really stood out to me was James Pierce Jr. There was some folks saying they didn't like his interview style or that he was just kind of reserved and to set people off or whatever. And then he ran a 4.47 40. So guess what? No one gives a shit about what he said in the interviews anymore. This is a guy who has the production and then went out and was able to show the athleticism as well. So I think James Pierce Jr. helped himself considerably. We talked about Shamar Stewart. I like Barron Sorrell, the kid out of Texas. Another guy that weighs over 280 and ran a 4.68 40. This is another guy that can play inside or outside and do damage. And then Landon Jackson, the D end out of Arkansas. This guy is a freak of nature, James. I don't know if I've ever seen anybody that big with that kind of motor that also is able to come in and do these types of measurables. This kid is a just brute force animal who also can run 6'6", 264, ran a 4.68 40, had over a 40-inch vertical, 10.9 broad jump. That guy is legit to me as well. What do you think about any D-line guys that I'm forgetting? And what do you think about my comments about the D-line and the running backs? You like those groups as well?
Oh, no, they were great groups too as well. I mean, two other guys, CJ West and Kenneth Grant. CJ West out of Indiana and Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. I mean, just for their sheer size, I think they outperformed their numbers quite a bit. I mean, when you get those 300-plus pound guys moving that fast, I thought they did quite well in that respect too as well. I mean, D tackle and DN, great draft. I mean, there's certain position groups that aren't, but you're right. D-line, O-line, running back. I mean, running back especially. I don't think you're going to see what it once was 15, 10 years ago. We're going to see multiple running backs getting drafted in the first round. But I think they're going to creep higher rather than starting off in the second and third round. So,
yeah, I could see several guys going in the late first, second round. I mean, you're talking about proven guys with production. You got the two guys out of Ohio State, Quinshawn Judkins, as well as Travion Henderson. Both of those guys ran a 4.4 40 without even training for the draft. That impressed me about both of those dudes, and obviously what they did this season. Caleb Johnson out of Iowa is obviously a guy who's proven he can tote the rock. You got Ashton Genty, who didn't really participate at the combine, but who I think is one of the best running backs I've ever seen in college football. I like Montrell Johnson from Florida, Trevor Etienne, some of the smaller school guys that we talked about as well, can really get after it too.
Corey and Hampton.
Yeah, Devin Neal from Kansas, who me and you both like, had a 4.58 40 times. So not the quickest dude in the world, but still has a burst and the ability to see the holes open up. So I like him as well. Just real quick, because we're almost up against it here. Quarterbacks. Me and you both have mentioned that we don't love this quarterback draft. And then with only three guys really even participating in the combine, it's kind of hard to get a measure on them. One guy that I will say that I think helped himself is Brady Cook, the quarterback out of Missouri. I did not realize this guy was this athletic. Ran a 4.59 40, had a 37-inch vertical, 10.8 broad, 7.01 3 cone, pretty good shuttle time. What do you think about Brady Cook? And is he an NFL quarterback?
I think so. I mean, it's like if you don't get him in the first round, they automatically push you down to day 3 in a lot of cases. And I could see a Brady Cook, honestly, he has a legit shot 3rd or 4th round. It's just there's so many people talking about the Jackson Darts, the world, the Cam Ward, the Shedeur Sanders. I mean, heck, Tyler Shuck, after what he proved at the Senior Bowl, and he really did pretty well too, from the combine perspective. But no, I like Brady Cook. Even Kyle McCord showed some stuff too as well. Now, I mean, the variance on him is going to be pretty big, but he's going to get drafted as well.
Yeah, he probably is, and definitely helped himself out by going to Syracuse and having a pretty good season.
Yeah.
He wasn't terrible last year. As I told everybody, he threw for 3,600 yards and 25 plus touchdowns with less than 10 interceptions. He wasn't horrible at Ohio State, but I'm certainly glad they made the move and got him out of there because we were okay with Will Howard. Obviously, when we talk about people flopping at the combine or people that may have hurt themselves a little bit, everybody's talking about Will Howard, missing some throws. As we already discussed, none of these guys from Ohio State had the ability to even train for this. He just had one of the greatest runs of any quarterback that we've ever seen in a 4 or 5 game stretch. James, who were your guys that you think may have hurt themselves a little bit? And what did you think about Will Howard's performance? And do you think he'll still be able to overcome that and get drafted?
I think Will Howard's pro day is going to have more of an effect than the combine, honestly. I think some teams are going to take that into perspective going in the guys who are interested in him. I mean, heck, you could say the same thing about Dylan Gabriel too as well. I mean, it's they both didn't show out the greatest, but I think there were some bigger misses. Obviously, Tez Johnson, when you're that small, the combine's important. I mean, let's be honest. And people were looking at his speed times, especially in the 40 when he ran a 4.51. I mean, people were talking to him like Tank Dell they did the year before, and or 2 years ago. And he doesn't. I mean, a 4.51 at that size is just not going to cut it. I mean, I think he probably bounced himself from second or third round to fourth or fifth round. Isaiah Bond shooting his mouth off, saying he was going to break the freaking all-time 40 time, and he runs a 4.4. I mean, you know, I like confidence, but then there's stupidity too as well, and he really walked himself into it. And Abdul Carter, I mean, I go back and forth on this because he had that injury issue. Some people said he should have got surgery, some didn't. I don't know what I'd do, but I think that's going to cost him the first pick in the draft. I mean, the talent's real. And then Mason Graham, been listed at 320 and comes in at like 290.
Yeah.
And his numbers weren't that great. I mean, I could see him getting bounced out of the first round based on that.
Yeah, no, the Carter thing is definitely going to be interesting to watch. You know, how do you not know that? I mean, this happens sometimes. You know, guys go get a deep physical with multiple X-rays and MRIs and scans and stuff shows up. But that's, you know, when you're potentially the first pick overall, I think you want to know that stuff going in. For sure. So that's kind of concerning. But this dude, you know, he's legit.
If he got surgery, would that have cost him the first pick in the draft too?
Maybe so.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like I go back and forth on that one. I'm like, you know, he's screwed if he does and screwed if he doesn't. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And, you know, that's going to be something to kind of pay attention to as we move forward. The good news is he's got an agent that knows how to handle these situations with Drew Rosenhaus. So he will, you know, he'll figure it out. And I think this guy will still be a top 5 pick.
Oh, God, yeah.
You know, James Pierce Jr., I think, is probably going to be a top 10 pick as well. And those are the 2 edge guys that really have that burst that we're looking for. And, you know, I don't know. Can you compare Carter to Parsons? I mean, is that even a comparison, James?
I don't think so. I mean, they were just 2 different guys. Carter was so off the edge where, I mean, I've been to games where I saw Parsons lining up at linebacker. I mean, he'd line up at middle linebacker blitz. He'd line up at Sam and blitz. He'd line up at D tackle and blitz. You just knew he was going to blitz. You just didn't know where the hell he was coming from. I don't think it's a good comparison at all.
Yeah,
but people, I mean, because they're both from Penn State, I mean, then they put that out there. But
well, they wear the same jersey and both have some bursts, so that's why the comparisons are made. But they're definitely got different skill sets. We're going to get into, speaking of skill set, we got a guy joining us today who certainly had some skills. We got DEE Miller about to join us from Ohio State. We're going to drop him on right after this.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now, with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and shop live events with confidence.
That guy's got a lot of energy. What are you waiting for? Go and enter in promo code NSS. Get your basketball tickets right now. Get the tournament tickets. Save $20. That's our gift to you. Enter in promo code NSS at SeatGeek.com and go watch some basketball while we're waiting for spring practice to begin. You know, as we reflect on the season that was, I thought it was important to bring in a guy who knows a little bit about the Buckeye history. Guy who's one of the best wide receivers in all time at Ohio State, putting together an excellent career. We got DEE Miller joining us today. I'm going to bring him on. Hey, D, how's it going, man? Can you hear us okay?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you good, man. Thank you so much for joining us. How you been?
I've been good. Thanks for having me. It's really honored to be here on this fine Sunday morning. The sun is shining up here in Ohio, so hopefully we'll get some warm weather this week.
Man, I hope it's coming. The last time I was up in Columbus 2 weeks ago, it snowed the entire time, and I remembered why I moved south. So I miss it, and I would love getting to see my grandfather. He just turned 97. Okay. So we got to go up and take him out for a little bit. The guy's still getting it done, living by himself, enjoying life at 97 years young. And he's a Buckeye fan through and through, man. D, this guy has seen all 9 national championships and been a Buckeye since 1928. So he's legit. On that front.
Well, yeah,
but
still getting around by yourself. That's a blessing in itself.
It is, man. We try and cherish every day we can get with him, and I try and run up there every couple months just to check on him and talk Buckeyes, and that's what we wanted to do a little bit with you today. Yes. Obviously things have changed a little bit since we were around playing ball. I played right around the time you did. The Buckeyes were not calling me, but I played up at Ohio Wesleyan University right around that same time, and now we've gone to the full 12-team playoff and got to see it for the first time. What did you think going in, I guess, to the new kind of playoff 12-team format, and then obviously after seeing it play out, what were your thoughts?
I think when you had the 4, you go to 12, you obviously think about there's more teams that can be added, gives everybody not the top 4, but the top 12 gives them opportunity to play. I think it was a great experience. First, it makes the season longer, kind of like an NFL season. That's the first thing that I thought. Yeah. And obviously, there's going to be some teams that felt that they should have been involved in the top 12. You're going to have that with the top 4, so that's really not a big factor. But seeing it break down, I think it was very, very entertaining. Obviously, the views were there. The way that we performed in it, I think, even on the outside looking in, if I wasn't an Ohio State fan, I think, college football fans really, really enjoyed that process. And so I think, obviously there's going to be some minor things that they tweak, but I think it was a success.
But what about from the wear and tear on the body, though, too? When you were playing during our age, there was 11 game schedule and then no conference except the SEC just beginning then, and then a bowl game. So only 12 games. And now you're seeing 12 game regular season, conference championship, and potentially 4 more games. Heck, if they make it any bigger, the next day after the championship, spring ball would start. What are your thoughts on that perspective?
It's the pros now. It's the pros.
Yeah.
So these guys are getting paid. If they wasn't getting, I'm saying it's kind of a give and take because it is wear and tear on your body. You're going to be, that more, I wouldn't say beat up when you get to the NFL, but you're going to have a little bit more wear and tear on your body. With that being said, just the way the whole thing is set up, the way that they play the game. Back in the day, like we had to have our mouthpieces in like during the game, like we had to cover up our knees. You know what I mean? Like, these guys are it's like the NFL. So I think when you look at that point, the guys are getting paid. Not everybody's getting NIL, but they're getting collectives. I think that's the kind of give and take with it.
Yeah, you're going to play a little bit longer, but you are going to get paid. And I think that's one of the reasons that the Buckeyes, had such a great run was that they did a good job of managing their roster and, sharing carries in the backfield as they went through the season. Having enough depth to last that long, I think is really one of the reasons that they were able to do it. I hate when everyone talks about our, I say our because I'm a huge Buckeye homer. Everybody knows it. But, you talk about the one loss. Everybody wants to go focus on that and bring that up. So I hate doing that. But I do want to talk about, how the season went towards the end and then how they were able to recover and turn that into a positive. Obviously everyone was disappointed. I was disappointed, but I'm not an idiot. And I wasn't calling for people to get fired as we were about to play for the championship. Now, there were people doing that, but those are the same people now that are celebrating. What were your thoughts with how the last game went, D, and how they were able to turn that around? And why do you think they were able to do that, given the circumstances?
I was heartbroken. I was there. I actually caught up with Orlando Pace. We watched the game. He has a suite there now, big time.
OP.
Pace. So we were just heartbroken, man. But what's so funny? It's like obviously we had our hiccups with Michigan, and just at the first quarter, I was like, it don't feel right. I mean, you can just naturally tell, like in the stadium. And, it's kind of like, here you go again. And, I think obviously Ohio State, when you look at after Cooper left, the success they had with Michigan with Coach Tressel, then Coach Meyer. So, they don't understand like the ebb and flows of it. Like we're a lot older now, you know what I mean? So we understand it's an ebb and a flow. Obviously, if you fire him, who are you going to go get? I mean, still, he has one of the best winning percentages for, the first 5 years in the history of college football. So, I understand people being a little upset, but, I think that was a learning experience for Day. You got to think about it. Coach Day is the only coach in Ohio State history that came here that never had any prior head coaching experience. So just because you're a great offensive coordinator is not going to relay automatically that you're going to be a great head coach. And I think he struggled with giving up some of the responsibilities. I think bringing in Chip, he knew Chip could probably hold him more accountable than anybody, and he needed that. So I like the way we bounced back. I think when we came out against Tennessee, he was first time I ever seen him like, we're going to play to win. And just, you know what, we got these dogs out here. We recruited them here. And let's keep feeding them. And he just turned very, very aggressive, and that carried on with Oregon, Texas, and even into the championship. So he learned a lot, and I think our team did too. They learned how to stay together and not listen to the all the critics and everything like that. So for me to see them persevere through that devastating loss and hear everybody coming at them and being able to mentally, we already know they have the physical skills, but mentally be able to hold tight and go on that run that I think was historic, to win the national championship under the first 12-game system.
Yeah. And James, let me just ask a quick follow-up to that. This is something you obviously dealt with, D, when you were there, and it's still there today. And, I just don't know how, being as big a fan as I am and following the program like I do, I don't know how these guys, the coaches, the players, handle it where, the expectation is way outweighing the appreciation. Everybody expects the Buckeyes to win every single game, every single year. And, to me, that pressure just would be laying on me like a ton of bricks. And talk to me about how that, it really exists and how you dealt with it when you were there and how these guys, deal with that now, because it hasn't changed.
It's tough. Ohio State is like, a professional team around here. So, that comes with a lot of responsibility, a lot of people expect the best. We're always in the top 5 as far as recruiting. We're always talking about 4, 5 stars. And, when people hear that, they expect, I think, greatness. And you have to just understand that now, to go 17-0, you know what I mean, with this new system is just going to be tough. So with that being said, I think people are starting to kind of, okay, we lost against Michigan, but we won the national championship. You know what I mean? Which is hard to say in one sentence almost. But with that, I just think everyone has to get used to. There's going to be a couple of games where you have hiccups. I mean, obviously, I know about that. I mean, I had one of the, the first BCS year, against Michigan State. That was a hiccup, and we felt terrible. We felt awful after that game. And, for as a player, you feel awful, but after I've left the university, and now I'm kind of a fan. And, you don't realize as a player, employees come in so lethargic Monday. It just makes Monday morning meetings and conversations at the water cooler. You just don't understand that those losses really have an effect on the whole mood in Columbus. So now you have social media, man. So it's like you're more, people are able to touch you. They could just talk to you. They can message you. They can say whatever. So I don't know how they do it now. I think the pressure is 100 times more. Now you're getting paid, social media. I don't know how they do it, to be honest.
Well, kind of changing gears here. Let's talk about your process from high school to college. And I mean, obviously rivals 24/7, all that didn't exist. It was newspapers that were putting out rankings. But what was your process going through the recruitment aspect? And, being an Ohio guy, was there that added pressure to play in Columbus for Cooper that you hear in other parts of the country? Like in Louisiana, people have that real pressure from outside forces that you got to go play for them. What was that process like for you from high school to college?
Stressful. It was really, really stressful because, at this time I had every college knocking on my door. I mean, the mailman would he would
unload.
Yeah, hey, here goes your mail. You know what I mean?
Here's your bag.
Santa Claus letters.
Yeah. So, we had to really, really kind of get used to all the attention. It's just something my family and I, we just wasn't used to. And, didn't have the internet. Like you said, it was Buckeye Sports Bulletin and all these recruiting magazines. So I took 3 visits. This was Ohio State, Michigan, and Tennessee. Went to Michigan. Ty Law was my host. It was awesome. And I just didn't want to play defensive back. They wanted me to play defensive back there. And then I was pretty sure about, going to Ohio State. My father was pro Ohio State. He never played football, but he just loved the Buckeyes. Obviously, we grew up here, and and I took a visit down to Tennessee. And that's when it really got interesting because I had a blast down in Tennessee, and it was actually wide receiver U at the time. It was wide receiver U. So on my visit, Heath Schuler was there, Corey Fleming, Nilo Sylvan, Joey Kent, and just really had a great time. And Aaron Hayden's father was my host. He was from Detroit.
Yeah.
And, so, I'm having a great time down there, and we're driving back home to Ohio, and I'm telling my mom and them, I was like, hey, I feel a little different. I feel a little different. Like I'm open to going here. My father was just like, just calm down. Everything was new. Give it a couple of days, and a couple of days I was still feeling like I wanted to go to Tennessee. And he just said, I think you being from Ohio, being right up the street from Columbus, I think if you go to Ohio State and get your degree, I think life after football would be better for you, attending Ohio State versus Tennessee. Of course, at an 18-year-old, I didn't understand that. I was thinking of NFL, but they were recruiting in my class. It was myself, Marcus Nash, and a kid named Maurice Staley out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And Coach Cooper and Mike Stott was recruiting me. So they heard that I was like kind of leaning towards, and they were like, hey, you're the only guy that we're recruiting, the only wide receiver recruiting in this class. And, and I wouldn't say threw out the red carpet, but threw up the red carpet, and, and everything worked out. My first 2-3 years was terrible. They didn't go well at all, but thank God I was able to stick in there. And everyone is, at that time, everybody's just not coming in and being successful. Of course, I saw that with David Boston and Michael Wiley. You know what I mean? So they made me had to be a little bit more patient. But I think if you just stay with it, stick with it, and that's what I did, because one day your number is going to be called. That's what I tell these players now. Like, I understand you're frustrated. I get that. I understand. but one day your number is going to be called. And if you don't make the play, everybody's going to be sitting around because your attitude reflects that. But if you go in every day, you just make sure that you do control your controllables, then that's all you can do. So at the end of the day, it was very stressful being compared to Chris Carter. That just brought an immense amount of pressure on me my first 2 years. And then after that died down, I felt like I got a little bit more comfortable. The game slowed down, and I was able to catch on and have a really successful junior and senior season.
When because you look at your time there, I mean that wide receiver room was stacked. I mean, Terry Glenn, Joey Galloway, Dave Boston. I mean, the list goes on and on. When was that eye-opening moment in practice that you realize I'm not in Springfield anymore and holy crap? Yeah, like I ask that all the time, and it's like interesting hearing the stories come out of like, oh my God.
The reason why I'm laughing so hard is because I came up with a lot of hype, obviously, and my buddy Tito Paul is one of my best friends. He's my kid's godfather. And just yesterday, I was like, man, I'm thinking about something. He was like, what? I said, man, why did you have to jam me so hard like that my freshman year?
Showing up.
That was the day where I was like, oh my God, this is a different world. You know what I mean? So, you had guys that was, 6 feet, weighing, 200 pounds, lean, 3% body fat. So not only him, you had Sean Springs, and even that, like I talk to my wife about this all the time. I didn't know that now, with all the wide receivers that came through, now we're considered wide receiver U. You know what I mean? Kind of like how things kind of came full circle. And, it is kind of cool to say that, I was a part of that run. You know what I mean? Because, we had Chris Carter, you had Jeff Graham, then you had Joey, you had Tippy, and then, with Terry just kind of, and myself, Joey, Kenyon, Reggie, Santonio, Ted. I mean, it's Gonzalez. It just keeps rolling, man. So, to see some of these guys and the guys a little bit younger than me and say, man, you and David was one of the reasons why I came to Ohio State, because I remember that 15 and that 9. Woo! Y'all used to put it. You know what I mean? So as far as like being a duo, but it's good to see what's happened to Ohio State over the years, and knowing that you had some skin in the game and build to the program what it is today.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And you talk about making that visit down here. Obviously, I live here now, so there's an appeal living here in Knoxville. And back then, they had some squads, and they got some dude from up in your area with Peerless Price. I know you know him, and they got him to come down here. So they didn't get both of you, thank goodness.
Yeah. Peerless, Andy McCullough. Andy was in my class, 94. He ended up going to Tennessee. Actually, he went to Tennessee, and then the next year, that's when Peerless came, and that when we lost to Michigan State, that's the year that they won the national. So he doesn't let me forget that.
No, I'm sure he doesn't. He likes telling that story. I know from running into him like I have. But they did have some ballers back in the day. Alvin Harper and Carl Pickens and Stanley Morgan and Joey Kent and Fleming, and I mean they were rolling there when Coach Fulmer was in the fold, and even Coach Majors before him. But you talked about those first 2 years and or first couple of years and earning your stripes and getting to where you wanted to be and getting to be the guy out there. Talk about that, as opposed to today. A lot of guys don't want to go through that now. They don't want to earn it. They want to be the guy right away. And then they, I think it hurts them sometimes seeing dudes like Jeremiah Smith, who is just a freak of God, who comes in and is able to do what he did. I mean, that's not normal. But, talk to me about, like, if you were doing it today, do you think you would still have that kind of patience and be able to sit and wait when you see other guys jumping in the portal and taking off trying to get greener pastures quicker?
I mean, probably, because my dad, God bless his heart if he was here today. Even then when I was like, man, I'm not playing, I want to transfer, and he was like, that's not the way life is. Like when life gets tough, like you just don't bail. It's like you gotta figure it out. It's like you gotta figure a way out. Are you working hard enough? Are you doing everything that you need to do? And I wasn't. I was overweight. Just wasn't in the best shape. I remember going to Coach K and he was like, D, you got to get faster. You got to get smaller and faster. So, back then it was called the big man's table. It was actually called something else, but can't say it.
We use our imagination.
Some of the stuff said back then you can't say today, but and it was humbling for me because I was the only wide receiver at that table. It was Juan Porter, Corey Stringer, Orlando Pace, all the big guys, all the the defensive line, offensive linemen, and I'm eating with them and eating baked chicken and no cheese and Coach K is making me run like 2 miles a day. It was crazy. And finally start working. And
it made you better, right? Going through that made you better, right?
Made me better. It made me know what like perseverance is, because a lot of people quit, they throw in the towel. I'm just gonna get my degree, and I was like, nah, I didn't come here for that. So my father instilled man, look at yourself in the mirror and be real with yourself. Are you putting in all the work that you could? And that 4.8 went to a 4.4. Yeah. And 13% body fat went to 4.3, and the game started slowing down. And once that started happening, and I even hope I'm thankful that the coaching staff hung in there with me. That long too, because they don't really do that a lot. So I think I was showing enough effort that I was gradually learning how to be a collegiate football player. And once that came on board, once my confidence, Coach K was like, hey, I think you should start coming back and working with the NFL guys. So, in the summer it was, I'm working out with Eddie, Joey, Raymond, like all the guys that came back. And that gave me confidence. I'm like, man, I'm working out with these guys, Robert Smith. Yep. So that just came, and, I was like, now it's time. In my junior year, David and I, man, we had a great last 2-year run. So, it played out well. And, and I try to talk to these players now, but it's different with the portal because after college, after the national championship game, it's like an open recruiting window for 5 days where colleges can call you and recruit you. Hey, what you getting paid there? We can give you this. And, it's a lot that changed. And so, it's really, really crazy, man, the more the stuff that I learned about it. So, but I'm just glad that I hung in there, because even in life now, I'll be like, it wasn't as hard as that, or it's not going to be hard as that. So it's something for me to just overcome now. It's like a part of me. I like it hard. I like the grind. I don't like anything given to me.
Yeah. You've had a lot of, teammates, mentors, heck, even family members. What's the best piece of advice that you've gotten or that you would give to somebody, heck, yourself at 17 or somebody playing today at 17 that you never thought of when you were that age?
Control what you could control. Control what you could control. I think so many of us get worried. We get anxious, worrying about things that we have no control about. I think if you go out there and you give your all every day at practice, you should be able to, you take a shower at night, you're looking in the mirror, you should be able to say, I gave it my all each and every day, right? Each and every day. And just keep it simple. I think so many times we worry about so much stuff. And I know these kids got a lot that's on their plate. They're getting paid, sending money back home to their family. Everybody think they're in the NFL already. You know what I mean? So I would just say control what you can control and be able to set boundaries. because if you have no boundaries, I mean, this world could just get dangerous in regards to athletics and pros and different things that they're going to be getting to see, as they make more money. But like for me, I just think my mom has always kind of drilled on me, baby, just, control what you control, put everything else in God's hands. That's what I would say.
Yeah. And it's, I think, you make a great point. It to me, it really comes down to, who these kids are surrounding themselves with too, D. And just speak to that real quick. We're almost up against it, but I just want to get your thoughts. So many times today, like you said, that portal opens up in December, and then all of a sudden these kids start getting the calls, hey, you want to come to Miami? You're making 50 grand. We'll get you 200 grand.
Right.
Well, they don't tell them they're going to take 20%. They don't tell them you're going to be 6 on the depth chart. And so, you got to be aware of what's best for you and who's looking out for you. And I just feel like it's really important to have the right people around you in today's climate. Am I right with that?
You have to be. I'm being an insurance agent with State Farm in Hilliard, Ohio. Is like I insure, a lot of guys on the team. And some of them I don't even speak to them. They have financial representatives, which I think is very, very smart. I would tell them just real quick. You're the business entity. You are the business. You know what I mean? And with that business, you're going to have your agent, right? You're going to have your financial services. You're going to have your business attorney. But remember, everything streamlines through you. And you make that business go. Without you, there is no business. So always try to tell them, don't be scared to speak up. Don't be scared to ask questions. It's never a dumb question. You got a lot being thrown at you. So it's very, very important. And the guys that I work with, I see that they're kind of streamlined already for when they do go to the NFL. They already have those pieces in place.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's important, and it's so much more a business than it ever was, and I'm glad they got people like you looking out for them. And I think that's a big part of the Buckeye culture. Is when I lived in Columbus for 25 years, a lot of the guys that left and a lot of guys that I knew that played, they came back to the community and tried to help these kids as they go up, and I really think that's a cool part of it. And just very special that guys like you that had so much success, care to help these other kids. And, it's going to be interesting. I just want to get your thoughts real quick before we get out of here. How do Ohio State doesn't rebuild ever. We know that. They reload. But this is going to be tough, D. I mean, eight guys on defense gone, quarterback gone, both running backs gone, Mecca Buka, one of the all-time leading receivers gone. How do they do it now with limited spring practice and obviously limited fall work? How do they do it and get these younger guys up to speed before Texas shows up in August?
Yeah, I think that's going to be kind of with the limited time now. You got to start figuring things out, and the limited time I think it is because of the season is so long. So you don't want to be pounding and exercising that much through spring. And I heard they're even changing the format of the spring game, really keep it not. So, man, it's just this crash course. I think you're going to have to put a lot of time. I know coming in our senior year, myself, Joe, David, we worked out every day in the off season, even when we didn't have to. So one thing when you're at Ohio State, when you play one-on-one against defensive back, that's going to be the best competition you ever face on a day-to-day basis. So when you do go out there on Saturday, you are prepared because you prepare against the best each and every day. So I think us having that type of atmosphere will get these guys up to speed. And, like we said earlier in the program, it's going to be some growing pains. It's going to be a growing pain when you have that many holes to fill. We do reload. However, nothing can substitute actual game time experience.
Yeah.
Those people coming in those positions are going to be new at that. So hopefully they'll be able to adapt and adjust early. We have a great coaching staff, so I'm sure they'll be able to figure things out.
Yeah, man. Iron sharpens iron. So hopefully they're all getting enough reps. But D, man, we cannot thank you enough. We really appreciate you taking some time out and talking some ball with us today, man. I was always a huge fan of yours, and and we really enjoyed getting to talk to you. And hopefully when I come back up, I can hook up with you and take you out to lunch or something. Okay.
Most definitely, man. Give me a couple of days heads up. Would love to catch up with you in person.
All right, I will do it. I'll give you a text before I come back up, and I'll be up there for the spring game for sure, and we'll get together and hang out. And thank you so much for coming on today and talking with us about some ball.
Thanks for having me. Really pleasure, man. I had a good time. You have a great Sunday.
All right, you too, man. We'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. That's DEE Miller, former Ohio State wide receiver. One of the most talented teams ever in the history of Ohio State. DEE Miller was a part of. You had him, you had David Boston, you had Pepe Pearson, you had Orlando Pace, you had Antoine Winfield, you had Sean Springs, you had Ty Howard, you had Andy Katzenmoyer. I mean, Matt Finkus, Mike Vrabel. Luke Fickle. We could keep talking.
We could have a show just naming off people he's played with. Yeah.
I mean, those 97 and 98 teams, some of the greatest teams ever in the history of college football that didn't win a title. And I wanted to talk to him about that. What did he think those teams would do in a playoff format, and how many titles do they think Ohio State might have if they'd had this, extended playoff for a longer period of time, because there was a lot of good, and not just at Ohio State. There's a lot of good teams everywhere that, lost one game here or there and then, got screwed out of the championship.
Those playoffs in the 90s would have been crazy. I mean, Florida State. I mean, you go down the line. I mean, winning the national championship the cards just fell at the right time during the season. But now you got to go on a 3 or 4 game stretch in a completely different environment. It's a completely different game now to win a title.
Well, back then, it was your schedule. Who were you playing? When were you playing them?
Injuries.
Were you at home? Were you at home? Who got hurt? It all came into it. But one thing about our guest, DEE Miller, was he stepped up in big games. I watched that 97 Rose Bowl, and he had a bunch of big catches in that game. In 97 against Penn State, he had 8 catches for 149 yards. In the Sugar Bowl in 97, he had 6 catches for 79 yards. This is a guy that showed up big in big moments, and he had to, because if D couldn't get it done, they were going to double David Boston on the other side. And then things might not roll as smoothly, and it was important for him to make a splash like he did. And I liked hearing him talk about the way he worked to get his position. He didn't show up as a freshman and just get handed the job. He spent 3 years working his ass off to get on the field, and I think kids might learn from that instead of just jumping to the next team when they don't get to start. You know what I'm saying?
Well, not only that from his playing time, but he's still doing it today as a trusted advisor too, as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been through those battles. He's had those, battle scars. I mean, now he's there not only from a financial aspect, but from an athletic aspect too, as well. I mean, that sage advice is always great.
Exactly. Counseling them on, about things on the field and off, and just helping them learn with his own experiences. And that's, like I said, one thing I think is really cool about that program. And I know other programs do it too. It's just I living up there like I did and being around the team. I got to be privy to it. But that's important, I think, to have these guys come back and be a part of your program, like Maurice Claret getting invited to be a big piece of that 2024 team. And I think it helped him. I think he told kids, hey, don't do what I did, stay clean and keep your eye on the prize. And Mo has one of the best stories to tell of any college football player that ever played. And I think it was smart of Ryan Day to bring him back and have him around the team, and to have D around the team like that. Having these guys that have been there, done that, I think means a lot. So anyway, great show today. Loved talking to DEE Miller. Appreciate everybody getting up early and rolling with us. And definitely, if you missed any of the show, go to YouTube, Man Coverage 2075, at Man Coverage 2075 on YouTube. Go to Twitter, Man_coverage. and watch a replay of the show. Check out all our old interviews, and come and see us again. This might be our last show for a couple weeks because I'm going to Florida to bask in the sunshine and take a little time. But we'll be back after that, start setting up, breaking down the spring ball and getting after it once again. So, James, take it easy. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I will talk to you real soon. All right, boss?
All right. We'll talk soon.
All right, keep your chin up.
All right. Later.